That ain't your brother.
Welcome to Davey Dave's Take. Today we're talking about Sinners, the new film directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan. So Sinners is about these two twins. They come back to their hometown. They want to throw this big party, but there's vampires around. And that is the most surface level summary you'll ever get of this movie. Because this movie is about so much more. There's so much that goes into this movie, to the story and what it's trying to say, that saying it's just your generic vampire movie isn't doing it justice. I really like Sinners. This is one of the more unique blockbuster type movies I've seen in a long time. Because from the trailers and the concept alone, it seems like we're just going to get a typical vampire horror movie. But when you get someone like Ryan Coogler, who's made some great films, directing it and writing it and crafting it, you get something great. That's the first thing I want to say about this movie. It is crafted beautifully. There are some amazing shots, but there are sequences in here and visuals that really made my jaw drop, and they're just so unique and beautiful to look at, and it's what really elevates this movie. There are many other things that elevate this movie from your typical horror movie or typical movie like this, but I gotta say the visuals for me is what really stood out, and then also its story. This movie really takes its time to build this world, this town, and its characters. Some people might say this movie is a little slow, a slow burner, because it takes a really long time to develop these characters. It takes a while to get to that horror stuff that a lot of people probably want to see. But I appreciate this film for really establishing where characters are at, their motivations, their backstories, because then when shit starts going down, there is this real sense of urgency, this real sense of care for these characters, and you're worried about what's going to happen to them. But it makes the story a little bit more interesting, a little more complex when we know where our characters are coming from and their motivations. And that's to do with great performances. I thought Michael B. Jordan was great here. He plays two versions of himself. He plays the twins, and they are very similar, but there's enough of a difference that if they were in separate rooms, where I could tell which character is which is a really underrated thing to pull off. And I think Michael B. Jordan did a great job. Miles Catan, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I'm terrible with grammar and names and everything like that. He's a newcomer, and he was great in this movie. He is the main character of this movie. He does a lot of singing, and he's just really great in this movie. And that's another thing. This movie has a lot of musical themes here, and it does really elevate the movie. It's really well done. It's just really great to see and listen to. I was so excited to see Delroy Lindo in this movie. I feel like I haven't seen him in anything since The Five Bloods, which I thought he was incredible in, and probably the best performance of that year. We didn't get nominated for anything, which is fucking horseshit. Delroy Lindo is great here. He's very funny, and that's another thing about this movie that kind of surprised me. There's a lot of humor here, and it really works for the movie. It never takes out the tension in certain moments. It's executed very well. Sometimes it reminded me of, say, like the humor in like a Tarantino movie, where the situation the characters are in is still really serious and scary, but what the characters are saying is still very funny, but doesn't diminish the seriousness of what's going on. I really did like what the movie's trying to say, some of the metaphors, some of the symbolic things that are going on in the movie. Like I said before, it's visually just fantastic to look at, and there's obviously a lot of thought that went into some of these shots and some of the messaging in this movie. So you wrap that all together, it's one of the more unique, bigger scale blockbuster horror movies I've seen in a long time. It's not perfect though. It has a couple of issues, but it doesn't ruin the movie at all. I think the biggest problem with this movie is the last like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes. Things get a little clunky. I wish there were certain things they switched around because it would have worked better for the story and it would have been a little less clunky. And sometimes the IMAX ratio would irritate me a little bit. Like there are parts where we know a big thing's about to happen and the IMAX ratio like switches. That's awesome. That gets anyone very excited, especially if you're seeing this in an IMAX theater. But it did feel like there were certain times where it was reminding me in a way of like Transformers 5. I don't even remember what the fuck that movie was called. Where the aspect ratio just switching a bunch of times. It's definitely noticeable, especially in like the first half of the movie. And I really did appreciate the character building and all that type of stuff. It was very interesting. But there are parts where it does drag a little bit, and there are some storylines that are definitely less interesting than others. But yeah, I really need a preference. This is one of the more unique, bigger scale horror movies I've seen in a long time. It's extremely well directed, written, acted, and it's really fun. When the vampire stuff is happening, it's really well executed, and it's probably the best and most exciting part of the movie. But if you're going in expecting your generic vampire horror movie, this is definitely not it. There's some aspects of that, definitely towards the second half of the movie. But this movie is really about the character building, the world building, what it's trying to say. And the vampire stuff is a nice cherry on top to this overall story. And I definitely think it's worth checking out if you're a fan of Ryan Coogler and any of his movies, or if you're just looking for a more unique, original experience in the theater. This is definitely it. I'm going to give Sinners 8 Davey Daves. There's honestly points in this movie where, like, I forgot this was a vampire movie because it gets so into the character stuff and the story. And it's great. It's great to get a movie like that. And then when the vampire stuff's going down, you're like, oh shit, this is a vampire movie. I hope everyone's okay. So I think you should definitely check this one out. So, Sinners, let me know what you guys thought of it once you've seen it. I'm curious to hear. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Davey Dave's Takes.